No update. Just felt a little something in her groin, so we'll get it evaluated and see what happens from there.
The Wall Street Journal didn't just publish an article. They lit a fuse, and now the entire WNBA is sitting on a powder keg. The piece didn't hold back, dropping allegations so serious that, if proven true, they could transform this from a sports headline into a federal case that shakes professional women's basketball to its core. We're not talking about a few questionable fouls or heated on-court moments anymore.
We've got an opinion commentary piece from the Wall Street Journal. Now, keep in mind, the Wall Street Journal has a readership of people that consume the Wall Street Journal across all political lines, okay?
Those days of brushing things off as just physical basketball are over. This is about language you'd expect to hear in a courtroom, not a press conference. Hostile work environment, systemic targeting, disparate treatment. These aren't just buzzwords, they're legal triggers. The kind that make attorneys start drafting letters, league executives start making phone calls, and commissioners start wondering if they'll soon be answering questions under oath. And that's the point. The stakes aren't just high, they're unprecedented. If even half of what's being suggested in the Journal's report is accurate, we could be looking at Department of Justice involvement. Think about that. The DOJ, a federal law enforcement agency, potentially stepping into the WNBA to investigate whether one of its brightest stars has been systematically targeted and left unprotected. That's not just bad PR, that's the kind of spotlight you can't hide from. It doesn't stop there. Congressional hearings could be on the table, the kind where league officials sit in front of cameras, fielding rapid-fire questions from lawmakers. Lawsuits could follow, not just from Caitlin Clark herself, but potentially from advocacy groups or sponsors who feel the league has failed in its basic duty to ensure a safe workplace. And safe workplace is exactly how the law would define it. Because once you strip away the jerseys, the arenas, and the fans, these players are employees. Employees with the same civil rights protections as anyone else. Make no mistake, this isn't just about the future of Caitlin Clark. It's about whether the WNBA is willing or even able to protect its stars and uphold the laws that govern every workplace in America. And if it turns out they haven't, the entire way this league operates could change overnight.
He's bragging about this 5-game winning streak. That is great. But Caitlin Clark doesn't get to play under these circumstances, where these girls are just going out there and playing basketball. That doesn't get to happen for her.
So here's the thing. This isn't some random blogger typing away in their parents' basement. This is the Wall Street Journal we're talking about. One of the most respected, influential business publications on the planet. The kind of outlet CEOs read over their morning coffee before making billion-dollar decisions. And the author of this piece, Sean McLean, didn't come to play. He didn't tiptoe around the subject. He didn't soften the edges. He went straight for the jugular. He flat out says what fans, players, and analysts have been whispering about for months, that the WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark might not just be unsportsmanlike, it might be illegal. Not league fine illegal, not suspension illegal. We're talking federal civil rights violation illegal, the kind of allegation that doesn't just cause trouble in sports media, it causes government agencies to start sniffing around. The claim? That the league has allowed, and maybe even quietly encouraged, a hostile work environment for its biggest star. That they've turned a blind eye while Clark's been repeatedly targeted with dangerous high-contact plays that go beyond normal physicality. That this isn't a series of coincidences or isolated incidents. It's a pattern. A clear, statistical pattern that any civil rights lawyer could take into court and say, here's your evidence. And here's the kicker. McLean isn't presenting this as a theory. He's laying it out like a case file, using precedent, numbers, and statements from players across the league. He's saying this situation might already meet the legal threshold for civil rights violations. That means if someone decided to pursue this legally, the WNBA could be staring down the barrel of lawsuits, federal investigations, and a PR nightmare the likes of which they've never seen. Think about these numbers for a second. Caitlin Clark isn't just a great player. She's basically the economic stimulus package the WNBA didn't even know it needed. Since she stepped foot in the league, viewership hasn't just gone up, it's skyrocketed 366%. The league's app, Engagement is up 613%. And merchandise sales?
I'm going to go to every road game, no matter what, like whether I'm playing or not.
Try a jaw-dropping 601% increase. These aren't the kinds of numbers you hope for in a marketing meeting. These are the kind of numbers that save a sports league from fading into obscurity, that take you from barely surviving to thriving and finally on the national radar. Caitlin Clark has been the human defibrillator shocking life back into the WNBA's heartbeat. And yet, instead of wrapping her in bubble wrap and hiring a security team to make sure she stays healthy, the WNBA has treated her like some kind of problem they need to manage. Like her success is an inconvenience rather than the jackpot it really is. It's the equivalent of winning the lottery and then complaining that you have to pay taxes. Or finding a golden goose in your backyard and thinking, ugh, all these eggs are such a hassle. It makes zero sense from a business standpoint and even less from a moral one. If any other professional league had a player generating this much money, you can bet they'd be doing everything in their power to protect them. But with Clark, it feels like they're doing the opposite. And here's where things stop being just concerning and start veering into legally dangerous territory.
You know, I usually stay out of these conversations, but with Caitlin Clark, I can't stay silent anymore.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Caitlin Clark has absorbed a staggering 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire league. Let that sink in. Not 17% on her team, 17% across the WNBA. That's double the rate her peers deal with. Now, any reasonable person knows that's not bad luck. That's not a coincidence. That's a statistical pattern so loud it's practically screaming, something is seriously wrong here. Numbers like that don't just make headlines, they make cases. This is exactly the kind of hard data civil rights lawyers drool over because it takes vague complaints and transforms them into undeniable, court-ready evidence. And it's not just Clark or her fans noticing it, even her opponents see it. Sophie Cunningham of the Phoenix Mercury, someone who literally guards Clark on the court, went on record saying, "The star player of the league is not being protected." Think about that for a second. This isn't some random fan on Twitter yelling into the void. This is a fellow professional athlete who competes against Clark, openly saying the league is failing to protect her. When your rivals, the people with the most to gain from you being at a disadvantage, are publicly calling out the system for being unfair to you, that's not just suspicious. That's damning. It's like an opposing lawyer standing up in court and saying, yeah, the other side is getting a raw deal. Now, Caitlin Clark isn't the type to cry foul every time someone bumps her. She's not out here begging for special treatment or throwing herself on the floor for sympathy calls. But she has been crystal clear about one thing. Everybody is physical with me. They get away with things others don't. That's athlete speak for. There's a double standard and everyone can see it. The refs see it. The players see it. The fans see it. And now the Wall Street Journal is putting it in black and white. But here's where it gets really serious and potentially devastating for the league. This isn't just about some missed calls or a couple of hard fouls. Clark's taken so much targeted physical punishment that she's already missed 10 games and the All-Star game because of injuries. And when she wasn't playing, the All-Star ratings didn't just dip, they collapsed by a jaw-dropping 55%. That's not just correlation. That's a flashing neon sign saying, when Caitlin Clark is out, the WNBA loses money. Period. In other words, every time the league fails to protect her, they're not just risking her career. They're actively sabotaging their own bottom line. That's the kind of thing that makes lawyers smell negligence, sponsors start asking questions, and TV networks get very nervous. And then there's the race angle. The part of this story that could turn a high-profile sports controversy into a full-on federal investigation. WNBA superstar Aja Wilson has openly said that race plays a role in how Caitlin Clark is treated on and off the court. Now, here's why that matters. In the eyes of the law, the moment federal investigators even suspect race could be a factor, the stakes explode. Under U.S. civil rights law, you don't need to prove that someone acted with malicious intent. You don't need a smoking gun email or a caught-on-tape confession. All you need is a pattern of discriminatory impact. And suddenly, the Department of Justice has every reason to step in. The Wall Street Journal didn't just float that idea and walk away. They backed it up with major legal precedents, including the landmark 1993 Harris versus Forklift Systems case that set the standard for what defines a hostile work environment. And according to their analysis, Caitlin Clark's current situation checks every single box. Severe. The incidents aren't minor. They include repeated flagrant fouls, dangerous physical targeting, and injuries that keep her out of games. Pervasive. It's not a one-off. The same pattern has been happening across multiple teams and multiple games. Alteration of working conditions. When your workplace is the basketball court and the conditions change so much that you're at constant risk of injury, the law considers that a fundamental change to your ability to do your job. In other words, if this interpretation sticks, the WNBA wouldn't just be dealing with bad PR. They'd be staring down the barrel of possible civil rights litigation and federal oversight. And once that door opens, you can't just close it again. And let's not forget, this whole thing isn't just playing out on the court or in the media. It's creeping into the world of politics. Indiana Senator Jim Banks has already fired the opening shot, sending a formal letter to WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert demanding direct answers. And this isn't some polite, "we'd like more information" request. This is the kind of letter that's designed to make league lawyers start clearing their schedules. Because here's the reality. If Congress decides to get involved, if they so much as smell the possibility of a civil rights violation, the WNBA could find itself dragged into public hearings where every ugly detail gets aired on national television. Picture it. Commissioner Engelbert sitting under oath in front of a panel of senators being grilled on live TV, not about marketing campaigns, not about ticket sales, but about why the league's biggest star, its cash cow, its ratings machine, the player responsible for a historic spike in revenue, has been allowed to become a human punching bag. Under oath, there's no PR spin, no dodging, no "we'll look into it." Every decision, every ignored foul, every email and internal discussion about Clark's treatment suddenly becomes part of the public record. And once that happens, the damage to the WNBA's credibility could be far worse than any bad headline. And then there's the nuclear option. The Wall Street Journal hints at something so explosive it could shake the entire foundation of the WNBA: antitrust threats. See, like other major pro sports leagues, the WNBA enjoys special legal exemptions that let it operate as a monopoly. It's a cushy legal shield that allows them to control scheduling, contracts, and even player movement without the same antitrust lawsuits that would crush any normal business. But here's the nightmare scenario for Cathy Engelbert and the league's owners. If Congress decides this mess is bad enough, they could strip those protections. In one move, the WNBA's entire business model could go up in smoke. We're talking about tearing down the league's legal walls and leaving it open to the kind of lawsuits and market competition it's never had to face. And here's the part that makes it all so damning. We've all seen the evidence with our own eyes. Caitlin Clark isn't being paranoid, and fans aren't imagining things. She gets targeted. She takes hits that would draw instant whistles, maybe even ejections, if they were against anyone else. Yet in her case, not a single suspension has been handed out for the flagrant fouls committed against her all season. That's not just bad refereeing. That's selective enforcement, and in the eyes of the law, that has a name: disparate treatment, which means treating one person differently from others in the same situation. And if investigators can prove that pattern, whether it's based on her race, her status, her gender, or her celebrity, then the WNBA isn't just in trouble. They're in existential trouble. The Wall Street Journal didn't just report on this story, they reframed it. Overnight, what used to be a heated sports debate became a potential legal crisis. They've essentially handed Caitlin Clark a step-by-step roadmap for a lawsuit. And if she decided to take that route, the WNBA wouldn't just be defending itself on the court, it would be defending itself in a federal courtroom. We're talking about the kind of legal storm that could completely reshape the league. Civil rights investigations that put the WNBA under a government microscope. Congressional hearings with every ugly internal detail dragged into the public record. And the nightmare scenario, the loss of its monopoly protections, opening the floodgates to lawsuits and competition the league has never faced before. If even a fraction of this actually happens, it's not just a PR headache. It's an existential threat to the league itself. And here's the part that's truly insane. All of it was avoidable. All of it. The league could have sidestepped every single one of these legal landmines by doing the most basic, obvious thing in sports management: protect your biggest star. Instead, they stood by while Caitlin Clark, the player who has single-handedly injected new life, new fans, and record-breaking revenue into the WNBA, became a walking target. And now the bill for that decision might be coming due. So, here's the million-dollar question. Is this just overblown media hype? Another case of the sports world blowing a few hard fouls out of proportion? Or is Caitlin Clark actually at the center of one of the most high-profile workplace discrimination cases in sports history? Because when you line up the stats, the injuries, the public statements from players and politicians, and now the legal analysis from the Wall Street Journal, it's hard to write this off as coincidence. This isn't just rough play. This isn't just welcome to the pros. This is a pattern, and patterns have consequences. But what do you think? Is the WNBA guilty of turning a blind eye to protect its image, or are we watching the media and fans twist a narrative for clicks and outrage? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't hold back, because this story isn't slowing down anytime soon. In fact, the next chapter could be even bigger, and it might not take place on the hardwood. And hey, if you want to stay on top of every twist, turn, and headline in this drama, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next big update.